Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammed Talha. I help companies and brands harness the power of the internet to achieve their bottom line business objectives, irrespective of whether it's sales or profit, more footfall in their physical store, brand awareness, reputation management, whatever it may be. I've designed and executed strategies which have given results in the US, UK, Singapore, Pakistan, UAE, and in Sudan. Today, I am going to share with you the principles, the tools, the KPIs, and the mindset that you will need to understand your customers and to create better result driven strategies for your business. In fact, what I wanted to share with you is so important that I just couldn't let this visa issue come in the way of me sharing my knowledge with you. The market is an analyst in the room. You guys will learn things today that will put you on the path of becoming a truly invaluable asset to your organization. The business owners and entrepreneurs and executives in the room, you will learn how to set the right expectations for your people and continuously challenge them so that they can help you sculpt your business to greatness. Inshallah. Let me show you how to excite customers using social media analytics. The first time I came to Khartoum was in April 2015. And two of my friends from the previous company, Dal Group, took me around the city for a sightseeing tour. We went to the Sufi shrines, ate kidney sandwiches, went fishing in the Nile. And by the way, I'm so happy there because that's the only one I caught in over 5 hours. And it was wonderful. But the place I loved the most was the Durman market because it took me back to my childhood. I grew up close to a very similar place called the Empress Market in Karachi, Pakistan. And my father runs a general and medical store close to the Empress Market. Back in the summer of 2002, just as I finished my A level, he asked me to help him out at the shop. And I was very happy about that because all my life, this shop had provided for all my calories and my sweet tooth. So the big day came. It was very hot and humid, mid-June. By the time we got off a cramped bus like this one, I was already tired and sweaty and thirsty and questioning the wisdom of agreeing to help my father. In fact, I was so thirsty that the moment the shutters were up, I went straight to the fridge to grab a bottle of water. But my father stopped me, gave me an old stinky broom, and said in a very matter of fact way, "Start cleaning." Honestly, I was devastated because I had imagined myself sitting at the counter and eating chocolates for the rest of my life. But with a newfound humility, I started sweeping. And from that day, for the next 1 year, my father made me do everything: cleaning, managing the shelves, managing expiry, killing rats, dealing with customers and vendors and salespeople, a little bit of cash counting, the whole works. It was the longest year of my life and I hated every single minute of it. But then one day, just before rush hour, he called me over to the cash counter, said he was a bit tired, and went home, leaving me in charge. I was shocked. But in that moment of disbelief, standing at the vantage point of the cash counter right here, I realized that my father had taught me all there was to know about running a shop to the extent that I was completely confident. In that moment, I realized the importance of being thorough. And that applies to everything, including exciting customers through social media analytics. The first thing you need to do is to master your tools. And here are the 5 tools I suggest that you begin with: Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, Twitter Insights, Buffer, and True Social Metrics. The second thing you will need to do is to stay informed with the current trends in the market. For example, do you know about Peach? It's a new hit social media platform that has come up. And the third thing you will need to do is to stay up to date with the new techniques coming in the social media space. Man has always innovated and he always will. This image here represents the early Egyptian pharaohs who wanted to improve their hunting success rate. So they trained and introduced dogs. Be thorough about your tools, trends, and techniques. And for this, you will need to work hard at it every single day. In fact, for you, I reached out to some of the best marketers and analysts in the world for their take on the question: how often should online marketers learn and apply to stay on top of their game. 7 gurus were kind enough to answer, and I'm just going to show you what they said. But for the moment, I will just highlight the time that they have suggested. But I strongly urge you to go through their entire answers because there's a wealth of knowledge over there, and I will share the link with you later. So the first one, Avinash Kaushik, the best marketer and analyst in the world, Google evangelist, blogger, public speaker, author of 2 books, and the person I have learned analysis from along with Mr. John Marshall, says 3 to 4 hours every day. Annie Cushing, the undisputed queen of data visualization, says 4 to 5 hours every day. Michael Stelzner, founder and CEO of Social Media Examiner, says every day. Cyrus Shepard, director of audience at Moz, says 1 to 2 hours every day and goes further to suggest that you should also attend 1 to 2 good conferences in a year, just like this one. Michael Stebbins, founder and CEO of Market Motive, the place I have done my certifications from and one of the best online certification platforms in the world, says it's a life habit. And Larry Kim, founder and CEO of WordStream, says 2 hours every day. And mind you, these guys are some of the best in the world. They are thought leaders in our space. And they too learn and apply and hack at it every single day. Know your tools, trends and techniques. But above all, know your customer. Because in knowing your customer is the real challenge and the real answer to exciting customers. For me, it is absolutely shocking that in today's complex world, market researchers still use simple demographic data to try to understand their audience. Their premise is that if you are a particular age, gender, nationality, live in a particular area, earn a particular income, then you are predictable. Well, you tell me. How many people do you know for yourself who are the same demographic as you are but who have totally different opinions, who love what you hate, hate what you love, who have a difficult spouse, are poets or misfits or just dumb? The possibilities are endless. So really, in order to be truly thorough about your customer research, you will need to move away from generalization and embrace human complexity and ask why along with the what. For example, if you post a video on YouTube, it's good and important to know how many seconds of the video people watched. But it's far more important to know why people lost interest at that particular point in time. For starters, learn to use these 4 tools. User testing. This is a place you can go to and ask real people to come back to your website or your social media page and tell you what they think. 5-second test from 5-second test from Usability Hub. You can go here, show real people your ad or social media post and for 5 seconds and they will tell you what they remember. Because if you are not making an impact in 5 seconds, then you probably never will. Manual social listening. It is absolutely imperative that you read every single comment on your blog, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever else you are and learn from what real people are telling you. And finally, leverage your networks. Get early feedback from your friends, colleagues, bosses, even go down to the malls and stores and universities if you have to. The point is, engage with real people to get real answers. And do not make the catastrophic mistake of thinking that you know, because your opinion does not matter. Let me give you 2 examples. Meet Prego. Prego manufactures ready-made sauces, especially spaghetti sauce. And for the longest time, the food industry in America, for about 30 years, they relied on focus group sessions to try to understand their audience. But then in the 1980s, Prego hired Dr. Howard Moskowitz. He created a sophisticated experiment, but he took it down to the streets of America. And for the first time in history, people expressed that they wanted extra chunky spaghetti sauce, which did not exist in the market at that time, and this was a big 33% of people. Prego started manufacturing it immediately, took over the market, and in the next 10 years made $600 million out of just their extra chunky line. And now say hi to Mr. Suresh. He's a barber close to where I live, and a few weeks ago I took my son over to him for a haircut. And while he was cutting my son's hair, he said to me, "Sir, you have terrible dandruff. Do you want an anti-dandruff service?" And I said something to him and I just ignored him. But he pressed on and he asked me 3 questions. What I did if I had meetings and if I wore a jacket to work. And I told him I was a marketer. Yes, I had meetings and I did wear a jacket to work every day. So when he was done cutting my son's hair, Suresh went inside, came back with a black piece of cloth, tied it around my neck, and started scrubbing my scalp with a soft brush. And dandruff started snowing down. I was shocked and my mouth was open. And at the perfect moment, I heard his voice saying softly, "Anti-dandruff service, sir?" And I just said to him, "Brother, I am all yours." And this is what happened. Be thorough. Because when you are thorough, not only about your tools, trends, and techniques, but also about your customer, when you embrace and welcome human diversity, and when you ignore inhuman demographic siloing, you will be able to suggest meaningful actions to take as a result of your analysis. And that is the first step towards exciting customers using social media analytics. Now, I have been talking for the past 10 minutes, and in that time, there have been 24 million new Facebook posts, 2.7 million new tweets, 2.1 million photos have been uploaded on Instagram, 43,200 minutes of video have been uploaded on YouTube, and there have been 14,000 blogs. Now let's take a look at 5 minutes of my own social media activity, fast forwarded in 15 seconds. And now let's take a look at 4 minutes of my own Twitter activity, fast forwarded in 15 seconds. Are you realizing something? I hope that you are realizing that in the world of social media, our content is not competing against that of our competitor. It's competing against everything and everyone. Fat friends telling the world that they are going to get thin just because their wife gave them a toy. Or cute children only according to their mothers. By the way, this is Usman, my son. And he's very cute now, but at that time he was really. And why Africans get late to work every day. The only way to break through all this clutter and to be noticed by your customer is by being customer centric. And let me dismiss something right off the bat here. Fans and views of your video are not a measure of customer love. They are the real life equivalent of your office colleagues giving you a smile every day, and we all know what that's worth, most of the time at least. So I am going to give you 5 KPIs that are going to enable you to become customer centric. These have been taught to me and the rest of the world by the great Avinash Kaushik. The first one, applause. Do people find your content even mildly interesting? It is calculated as the number of likes per post in the context of your total audience. Amplification. Do people find your content interesting enough to put their name and face to it and share with the world? It's calculated as the number of shares per post in the context of your total audience. The third one, conversation rate. Were people so moved by your content that they decided to engage with it and your brand? Calculated as the number of comments per post in the context of your total audience. The fourth one is sentiment. How are people feeling about your content? Do they love it, hate it, or worst of all, do they just find it mediocre? It's calculated as the ratio of positive comments to negative comments. And finally, most importantly, economic value. How much money are your social media efforts making for you? Now, I really wanted to get into the complexities of these KPIs in the workshop tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen now. But I'm going to show you an example so that you can see these concepts in action. Let's meet AT&T, one of the biggest telecom companies in the world, and this is one of their best posts in the last 45 days. 9,769 likes, 788 shares, and 485 comments. That's huge! Or isn't it? Because these guys have got 5.9 million people following them. And now, when you look at these numbers in their true context and do your calculation, you will suddenly realize that their applause is 0.002, their amplification is 0.00001, that's 4 zeros, and their conversation rate is 0.000008, that's 5 zeros. And I went down and read every single one of these 485 comments, and I found that for every one positive comment, these guys have got 15 negative comments. Finally, economic value is something that I couldn't have calculated because I don't have access to the backend data. But Avinash Kaushik has come up with a marvelous, holistic way of thinking about it. It is called the MOR test, the money over roof test. So what it says is that you calculate all the money that it's costing you to do your social media effort. You know, salaries, transportation, stationery, whatever it is. Put all that money in a bag, take it to the roof of your office building, and throw the money over the roof. And if you are generating more buzz by doing this than by doing all the social media activity and efforts in a month, then you're just better off doing that, aren't you? Measure the right things in context. Measure applause, amplification, conversation, sentiment, and economic value. When you do this, when you focus on the right KPIs and measure them in their true context, and when you ignore superficial things like followers and fans and page views and video views and such, you will begin to care about what is resonating with your customer and what isn't. And as a result, you will be able to give direction and incentive to your social media effort, and that is going to be the second step towards exciting customers. So now we know that we have to be thorough and we have to measure the right things in context. But there is an overarching hurdle yet to cross, and that is called the Hippo. When you do your analysis and create your reports, you will almost always take it to a meeting room to get buy-in. And in every meeting room is the highest paid person with an opinion. We analysts lovingly call this person the Hippo. To convince, to win the heart of, and to get buy-in from the Hippo, your reports don't just need to be deeply rooted in meaningful data, they also need to tell a clear and simple story. The keyword here is narrative. Now let me show you one of my reports. The first box here shows the top 13 KPIs for the business: budget invested, revenue, traffic, bounce rate, time on site, etc. The second one dissects the traffic by source. So how many people came from Facebook versus Google versus email, etc. The third one, right underneath it, shows the contribution of these sources to sales. The fourth one shows the top pages for both the English and Arabic websites. The fifth one shows the overall general Facebook overview. And finally, the sixth one shows repeat buyer report, repeat customers in the month. My friends, let me tell you that this one page is enough to force somebody to commit suicide or worse, to fire me. Because this is equivalent to me chewing on data from different sources and puking it on one page. This is not analysis. There is no narrative here. There is no measurement here. There is no recommendation here. This is uglier than the ugly duckling and uglier than Cinderella's stepsisters combined. And actually, I have an idea. Why don't we sit in the executive's shoes now for a moment? You know, the guy who's responsible for our salaries and the profitability of the company, and the guy we lovingly call the Hippo secretly sometimes. If you put this meaningless bunch of numbers, this data puke, in front of your boss, then there is no wonder that they don't listen to you and follow their own opinion. Maybe the real fool in the room is the analyst. And now let me show you something different. Another one of my reports. This begins with identifying the business objective and calling out a clear KPI that answers to that business objective. It then uncovers a real issue by comparing our performance against the competitor's performance, and shows that while they are taking 25% market share, 50,000 visits a month, We are just getting 128. Then it dives deeper and it analyzes hundreds of posts from all the competitors and us and discovers the best frequency and time to post on social media. And it also gives a link to the deep analysis, which, if somebody is interested, can always go and check. Then it goes really deep. It selects 100 posts that have passed the industry benchmark 0.35, and it identifies what is resonating with the customer in all of them and finds that it's seasonality, a clear call to action, and good design. And now, in the light of all this data, it gives recommendations, a very specific set of actions, to the extent that the person who would be responsible for implementing these won't need to move a muscle. And finally, and most importantly, it calculates and gives approximate business impact. How much money are you going to make if you implement these actions? This is analysis. The ugly report took me 30 minutes to make, and this one took me 12 hours to create. This is beautiful. This is like Cinderella or a rainbow or rain in a desert. I'm getting over dramatic here, but I'm sure you get the point. But even this wonderful report that I just showed you is fundamentally weak and flawed in something. This report is great for most of the people in your organization. Your marketing managers, your brand managers, the social media managers, people who are going to implement these changes, designers, and so on. But you need to get the attention of the big boss, the executive. And that person doesn't have time to go through all this content. For the executive, you need an executive dashboard. And all of this analysis, this whole page, needs to be condensed into one small box, literally this size. All your findings will need to be summarized into a couple of short sentences. All your recommendations into a couple of short sentences. One small graph, self-explanatory, chart, figure, whatever you want to give. And the business impact. So this whole page needs to be distilled and crystallized into this small box. And then this small box is accompanied by 3 or 4 other small boxes, all answering to very specific business objectives through KPIs. And that is the executive dashboard. A 3-minute read where every single word has purpose. Mark Twain once wrote a letter to a friend, and he started it by saying, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. And I really think that the biggest challenge for the analyst, the nemesis, if you will, is brevity. I truly believe that in our day and time, where digital is becoming more and more important and its impact on business cannot be underestimated, this one page is the most powerful business driver. And if you keep this in front of your boss and then come through with all your actions and give business value, then you should get ready for your next big raise, inshallah. Learn to communicate like a ninja. And now you know that you have to be thorough, you have to measure the right things in context, and you have to improve your communication and presentation skills. I've told you the principles, tools, and the KPIs that you will need to succeed in the social media space. But I understand that this might have sounded tough, maybe a little unnerving. Because after all, how can we ever be sure that our analysis is deep enough, that we dug deep enough, that our narrative is convincing enough, that our knowledge is good enough and strong enough? And here is where comes the mindset. And let me share you a small story, a final story. Once upon a time, there were a boy and a girl. They lived their separate lives until in the year 2000. Fate took them to a school where they met. The boy immediately fell in love with the girl, and on the very next day he went up to her and he told her that he wanted to marry her. The girl was very shy, but she smiled in approval. The boy was poor, not very well off, and he couldn't have married the girl, but he was truly determined to get her. So he got into it and worked hard and hacked at it every single day, and 8 years later they got married. Life was beautiful. But almost immediately, things spiraled out of control to the extent that by 2009, in just 1 year, their marriage was at the lowest point possible, divorce was inescapable, and it was all the boy's fault. But he was determined not to let go. So he tried and he bought time and he dragged it for as long as he could. But it didn't work. And the day to end the marriage came upon him. However, he was still determined. So, in the depth of that darkness and despair and hopelessness, Allah let him find courage in his determination, and he went out and kidnapped his own wife, sort of. Now, mind you, it was a willful kidnapping, because although the girl was shedding crocodile tears for the first 30 minutes, her heart was singing with joy because her man had finally come around. They live happily to this day. They have 2 children now. But you will be surprised to know that from the day they got married to this day, they fight almost every single day. They're 2 separate individuals with their own opinions, and the boy doesn't go for shopping with his girl, but their love and their determination, more importantly, is a very strong force. This is a true story. This is my story. I made that chart to represent our life, printed it on a mug, and I gave it to my wife on our last anniversary. You know, I achieved this because of my determination. And I'm sure you must have heard that the only thing constant in life is change. Well, let me tell you that another thing constant in life is making mistakes. And you will falter and you will have a difficult time. But if you are determined to be thorough, especially about knowing your customer, if you are determined to measure the right things in context and ignore the fluff, and if you are determined to relentlessly work on your communication and presentation skills, then mark my words, every day, one step at a time, you will be able to excite customers using social media analytics and be the leader you were born to be. Inshallah. Thank you very much and good luck. Assalamu alaikum.